I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. I want to give double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, because those are the men who I learned this truth from through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Yahweh is the true name of the God of Israel. Yahweh Shai is who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, but his one and only true name is Yahweh Shai. And pretty much this is going to be a video about man's seed, what determines your nationality according to the Bible, the identity, the culture you're going to take on, and also going a little bit into Moses' wife Zipporah, because you know there's a lot of confusion between Exodus, the 2nd chapter, because her father was a priest of Midian, right? And he's a Midianite, but then when you read Numbers 12:1, it says that she's a Cushite. So which one is it? Is she a Midianite or is she a Cushite? So I got a little information, you know, to pretty much get rid of that confusion, which is not important because it's all about Moses' seed, Gershom. He's a priest, right? He's listed in Chronicles. But, you know, it's just some good information to know in case you was confused about it, all right? So without further ado, let's get into it. So this is what I typed in on Google, right? This is what the AI said. I typed in your nationality in the Old Testament determined by your father's seed or pedigree, right? In the Old Testament, nationality and tribal affiliation were determined almost exclusively by the father's seed and patrilineal pedigree, meaning on the man's line, through the man's seed. That's how you can trace somebody's nationality. That's why the Lord said, judge not according to the outward appearance, because the individual, whether it's a man or a woman, comes from a man's seed. All the human beings that you see on the planet Earth, they come from a particular man's seed, right? See, in the ancient world, we kept a record of our forefathers to prove what tribe we come from, to prove that we're the rightful owners in a specific inheritance. When you read Numbers, the 36th chapter, all right? But we lost that, going back to the Babylonian captivity all the way up until right now. So now we believe that we're Israelites through faith, but it can physically be proven though. But this is a thing on faith. So when you reading or when you see the 12 tribes chart, you got to understand that's dealing with end time prophecy. Where would the Israelites, the main bulk of the Israelites, be at in these last days? Well, when you read scriptures like Jeremiah 50:33, it said that the children of Israel, they would be oppressed together in Babylon, right? In ancient Babylon, the Israelites, the northern and the southern kingdom, they weren't oppressed together. That happened here in America, which is Babylon the Great. That's why you see so-called Negroes and Latinos and the different Native American Indian tribes together. Even in Central and South America and Canada is like that as well. All right, if you actually go to like Central and South America, you're going to see a lot of Morenos, you know, a lot of Negroes there, along with Latinos. The same thing you see in America. Why is that? Because we're being oppressed together. All right. When you read 2nd Ezra 13, verses 40 through 46, it says that the lost 10 tribes of the nation of Israel would be in ASSHUR, which when you read the Jewish encyclopedia, it said that Columbus identified ASSHUR with the Americas. All right. Then to top it all off, when you read Genesis, the 49th chapter, that's strictly going into end time prophecy, all right, of particular tribes, their characteristics, where they would be at, you know, why they're divided, like Levi and Simeon, right? So all these scriptures, including Ezekiel, the 37th chapter, that's going into end time prophecy. So that's what the chart is dealing with, all right? So genealogies, inheritances, right, and tribal membership were traced strictly through the male line. You can't trace your genealogy through a woman because a woman, she doesn't carry seed. The seed is the sperm. I'm going to go into it. It says, and a child's national identity followed that of the father. Exactly. That's the culture you would take upon. That's the identity you would take upon. That's the nationality you would take upon. Based off of the seed of your father. You are what your father is. It don't matter if your father was a deadbeat. If your father is an Israelite, you better praise Yahweh and Yahawashi that he was created to be an Israelite and that you come from that seed. All right? Let's go down here. This patrilineal system defined ancient Israelite society in several keys. Tribal inheritance, going back to what? Numbers 36, which I got to do another video on that. It says, membership in the 12 tribes of Israel was inherited exclusively from the father. So you can't make yourself a spiritual Israelite. Read Romans, the 9th chapter, the first 4 verses or first 5 verses. All right? It tells you that the promises that started with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and his 12 sons, that's only for the Israelites. The covenants, the adoption of the Lord, the promises from the Most High, the blessings of the kingdom of heaven, and everything that pertains to the new covenant, that's only for the Israelites. Why? Because we inherited from the fathers of the promise, because we're the seed of the promise. All right? So you can't make yourself a spiritual Israelite. That's a stupid, false doctrine. It don't make sense. It says, yep. For example, if an Israelite man married a foreign non-Israelite woman, aka a heathen natural Gentile, one of the 17 heathen nations, right? The children were still legally counted as Israelites. This is what we've been saying for decades. All right, this is what the apostles been teaching for decades. Even Google noticed, right? Let's read that again. For example, if an Israelite man married a foreign non-Israelite woman, the children were still legally counted as Israelites and belonged to their father's tribe. Because it's all by the seed of a man, which is his sperm. His sperm is the seed that he puts into a woman. The woman gives birth to a man's seed. That's why Yahawashi has a genealogy. All right? The paternal seed. The Hebrew word Zarai, right? It says meaning seed or offspring. Is used throughout the Old Testament to define lineage, strongly emphasizing the father's biological and legal role in determining a child's heritage. All right? The Lord gave a specific heritage to a seed line of people. It's not bloodline. A Edomite and a heathen can have the same blood type as you. It ain't bloodline. You can't trace shit through bloodline. It's seed line. All right? It says national census. When Israel recorded its population, they explicitly declared their ancestry after their families by the house of their fathers. Numbers 1 and 18. And I'm going to read that. That's how you know what it's going into right here is these imposters. These imposters right here, they don't really follow the Torah like how they claim to follow it, because they go based off of maternal line, based off of the mother's line. You can't trace a genealogy. You can't trace ancestry, your pedigree, your descendancy. You can't find your origin through your mother. Your mother does not carry seed. So if you have an Israelite woman, and I got an example of that too, because that's a part of the Mamzer part that I'm going to break down in this video. If you got an Israelite woman that gets pregnant by one of the 17 heathen nations, she is getting pregnant by that heathen man, because that heathen man is putting his seed into that Israelite woman. That child is going to be a Gentile. All right? It's not an Israelite. It don't matter what type of genetics and outward appearance that looks similar to Negroes that child inherits from the mother. Is still a Gentile, because that's how the Most High created origin, through seed. All right? As far as human beings and what nation they're going to be a part of. So these people, they're not the real Jews just based off of that. All right? Let's go back. So that's it with that. So now let's get into Numbers. This is Numbers chapter 1. Put the Strongs on. Numbers chapter 1 and verse 18. It says, and they, the Israelites, assemble all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees, right? Let's go into this word pedigrees. Yalad, right? Yalad in the Hebrew, right? To bear, bring forth, beget, gender, travail, right? Of childbirth. Let's go down here, see if it got a little more for me, right? The day of birth, birthday, to declare one's birth, pedigree, meaning your origin, which is based by what? The seed of your father. After their families, by the house of their fathers. Why? Because men carry seed. The seed is the sperm. It says, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by their polls. Because this was a census, because they was getting ready to go to war. All right? So let's read this example of an Israelite woman who had sex with an Egyptian, and this child is not an Israelite. And you could tell based off of what? His spirit, how he cursed the Most High, right? Which he ain't literally cursed the Most High, but he was saying ill things towards the Most High. So this is Leviticus 24 and verse 10. And the son of an Israelitish woman, right? The son of an Israelitish woman, right? This is an Israelite woman. She has a son, and then it's going to say whose father was an Egyptian. So this child, after everything you learned in this lesson, this child automatically is an Egyptian. All right, dark skin, probably got some genetics from the mom, but that seed line is an Egyptian. Went out among the children of Israel. And this son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp. And the Israelitish son blasphemed the name of the Lord. So this Gentile seed who got an Israelite mother, he blasphemed the Lord. When you blaspheme, that means you speak lies against the Lord, right? It says, the name of the Lord, which is Yahweh, the word Lord is in caps, and cursed, and they brought him unto Moses, and his mother's name was Shelomith, the daughter of the bride of the tribe of Dan. And we know the tribe of Dan, they're known for their idol worship. All right. It says, and they put him inward, that the mind of the Lord might be showed them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, bring forth him that have cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, whosoever curseth his God shall bear his sin. And he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death, and all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well the stranger as he that is born in the land. When he blasphemeth the name of Yahweh, shall be put to death. All right? So that's in heathen spirits, whether they know it or not, that they don't believe in Yahweh. They don't believe in Yahawashi. All right? So in his spirit, that's how he was. He's a heathen. He had an Egyptian father. Let me just read in the NLT version for you. This is Leviticus 24 and verse 10. It says, one day a man who had an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father came out of his tent and got into a fight with one of the Israelite men. See, this is more simplified. It says, during the fight, this son of an Israelite woman blasphemed the name of Yahweh with a curse. So the man was brought to Moses for judgment. His mother was Shelomith, the daughter of the bride of the tribe of Dan. Like I said, Dan is known for the idolatry. You could also read 1 Kings, the 12th chapter. It talks about the sin of Samaria, where Dan was setting up the golden calf and all that. All right. It goes on to say, verse 12, they kept the man in custody until the Lord's will in the matter should become clear to them. And then y'all already know the story, because all of Israel stoned this individual. But the point is, the scripture said what? He had an Israelite mother and an Egyptian father. So if you are what your father is, according to the seed or the sperm of a man, then what nationality would that child be? He would be an Egyptian. All right? So in his spirit, he ain't gonna worship the Most High. The heathens don't worship the Most High. Read 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. When you had that particular Assyrian king put heathens into the land, when you get to around verse 24 and down, what did they start to do? They started to keep their own culture, their own way of life in the land of Israel. So that's in their spirit. They don't worship the Most High yet until we become the authoritative power in the kingdom of heaven. All right? So now back to seed line. This is Romans chapter 1 and verse 3. It says, Romans 1 and 3. Concerning his son, Yahushua Mashiach, our Lord, which was made of the seed of David according to the flesh. Yahushua had biological mother, father. He had brothers. He had sisters, just like us. Wisdom of Solomon, the 7th chapter, it tells you that. No human being has this interest into life unless it's through sex. That's how everybody comes on the planet Earth, through the act of sex, through the Most High's will, through the seed of a man. All right. So let's go into this word seed, because you got these Christian denominations teaching an immaculate conception. Angels, when you read I believe it's Matthew 22 and 30, it tells you that what? Angels, they don't have sex, right? When people die, their bodies decay, and their spirits, it goes up to the spirit world to receive their judgment. But what did Yahushua say? That they are as the angels of heaven. Meaning the angels of heaven, they're not given into marriage. They don't have that feeling of lust. Oh man, look at her fat ass. Look at her titties. Look at her long hair. They don't think like that. All right? They don't reproduce up there. Ain't no female angels. All the angels is males. Yahushua is a male. The Most High is a male. All right? So let's go into this word seed in the Greek. The word there is sperma, right? Let's go down here. Strong's definition. Something sown. That's what a man does during sex. He sows his seed into the woman. The woman's vagina is like the soil. All right? It says, i.e. seed, including the male sperm. By implication, offspring. Specifically or especially a remnant. Figuratively, as if kept over for planting. Issue seed. Right? So a man's seed is his sperm that he puts into a woman, which her vagina is likened unto what? Soil. She nurtures the seed for 9 months, and then she gives birth or conceives man's seed. All right? It says, let's go down here. Yep, the semen, verily, the product of the semen, seed, children, offspring, progeny, family, tribe, posterity. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, but you see how it's spelled there. Yep. Whatever possesses vital force or life-giving power. All right? Of divine energy of the Holy Spirit operating within the soul, by which we are regenerated. So regeneration, reincarnation is pretty much the same thing. When you die, your body decays and your spirit goes up to the Most High. All of us have been reincarnated and came back into regeneration plenty of times. And we come back through the seed of our fathers. All right? So now, that's it with that. So now, this is why I typed in on Google. Seed Wait for it to pop up. Seed goes back to sperm in the Bible. Yes, in biblical texts, the concept of seed is deeply tied to male sperm and ancestry. So now the next question should be, why the hell is everybody taking DNA kits? Everybody claim they believe in the Bible, right? Well, the Bible is telling you you are what your father is. And we know after the flood, there was only 18 nations that was established, and the chosen nation or the chosen seed on the planet Earth is who? The Israelites, which are the so-called Negroes, Hispanics, and Native American Indians. If you don't come from that seed of Israel, you can never be an Israelite. You can't do nothing to change your nationality, all right? It says, so that's the point. DNA kits, it's a scam. All right, it's a hoax. You're wasting your money. It says, this stems from the ancient biological, right, understanding that a man provided the physical seed of life while the woman's womb was simply the soil where it grew. Exactly. The original languages of the Bible reflect this connection directly, right? In the Hebrew, the Old Testament, the word used is Zerai, which refers to both agricultural seed and male semen, right? Greek New Testament, the word used is sperma, which translates directly to that which is sown, and specifically includes male sperm, all right? It says, yep, so I mean, that's the point. Family lineage, the word Zerai is frequently translated as descendants or offspring to trace a family or tribal heritage. For an example, the Most High's promise to, right, Abraham, Genesis 12 and 7, promises to give the land to Abraham and his seed, right? What seed? Isaac, and then Jacob. So that's it with that. Let's go down here. The story of Onan, which, by the way, concerning Onan, there's a lot of, he's used for a lot of like controversial questions and talk, concerning, not to get too graphic, but like masturbation and stuff like that. And you people, you take things way out of context, all right? Onan, he didn't keep the law. That's why the Most High put him to death. But people read particular stories and they don't have the Holy Spirit. So then they come up with their own private interpretation, and then they get all these views and spread confusion, right? The story of Onan, that's in Genesis, the 38th chapter, right? Found in Genesis 38, verses 8 through 10, Onan is condemned for wasting his seed on the ground. So people use this, and I'm just going to make it brief, to say that, you can't do particular things, right? Which I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not even giving no counsel or nothing like that. But they use that to spread that type of information like that. And they're not explaining it correctly, why he was judged by the Most High. It says, instead of fulfilling his legal duty to impregnate his deceased brother's wife, right? Then they said people talk about it on Reddit. It says the punishment was for evading his family's obligation and denying his brother an heir rather than a general condemnation of masturbation. Exactly. Because that was the law. All right. He was supposed to raise up seed, take his brother's wife, raise up seed, and after his own brother. That's why the Most High judged him when you read the story. I ain't talking about masturbation. All right. Because I remember when I first came into truth, you learn things like over time. But that was like one of them controversial things, So that's it with that. That's it with that. So now, let's go here. Because Yahushua, he had a genealogy. It says the genealogy of Yahushua the Messiah, which is recorded where? Matthew the 1st chapter, Ruth chapter 4, verses 18 through 22, 1 Chronicles chapter 2, verses 1 through 15, Luke chapter 3, which I got that, verses 23 through 38, right? you could trace Yahweh's lineage all the way back to Adam, the son of God, which if you could receive it, that was Yahweh in his past life. Even in Corinthians, Apostle Paul, he had that understanding, all right? Men understood reincarnation when you read in the scriptures. So it says, Matthew 1:1, it says, the book of the generation of Yahweh Mashiach, the son of David, which was King Solomon, which if you could receive it, that was Yahweh in his past life. That's why Hebrews 7:27, it says what it says, all right? It says, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Who was the son of Abraham? Isaac. What was getting ready to happen to Isaac? He was getting ready to be sacrificed, right? But then the angel came and said, wait, right? Because Abraham, he had great faith. He walked by faith and not by sight. He wasn't second guessing, oh, should I, kill my son? This is my son. Should I go against the Most High? He wasn't thinking like that. He heard a command from the Most High, he did it. Well, he was about to do it. But the point is, that spirit, that was the Messiah. It wasn't time for that spirit to be sacrificed like that, all right? But when he came back as Yahweh the Messiah, then it was time for him to be sacrificed. So let's go into this word generation in the Greek, right? Genesis, or some people say Genesis, right? Let's go down here. Biblical usage, source, origin, right? Your genealogy is your source or origin that could be traced through the seed of your father. Back then we had records of what tribes we came from. It wasn't a thing of faith. It was a thing of custom back then, right? Source, origin, a book of one's lineage, i.e. in which his ancestry or progeny are enumerated, right? And when you read Matthew, the first chapter is naming nothing but men, because men carry the seed, right? And then it mentioned Ruth, because Ruth, she was used to what? Carry that seed of Judah line through. Boaz, Jesse, David, right? Because Yahweh, he's a descendant of David. He's a Judite. It says use of birth, nativity, of that which follows origin, existence, life. It says, the wheel of life. Other explain it, the wheel of human origin, which as soon as men are born begins to run, i.e. its course of life. All right? So when you're reading about somebody's generation, it's always naming men. You read about particular Levitical priests and particular priests and Levites, is always naming men. Why is that? In order for you under the old system, right, to serve in the Lord's tabernacle or in the temple, you have to be a Levite. Numbers 18. It names nothing but men, because women can't be priests. Women are not prophets. Oh, but the word prophetess is in the Bible. A prophetess is just a wife of a prophet. None of the 12 disciples were women. A woman is not built to handle the type of burden of being a prophet. All right? She will quit. So now, look, from verses 2 all the way to verse, look at that. It's naming none but men. Verse 17, it's naming men. Because Yahweh, he had to fulfill specific prophecies as the Messiah, and he did. All right? So that's it with that. I don't gotta, matter of fact, I'll read verse 17. Matthew 1 and verse 17. It says, so all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And from David unto the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. And from the carrying away into Babylon unto Mashiach are 14 generations. All right? So now, when you read Luke, the 3rd chapter, right? It's dealing with Yahweh being baptized. That's also recorded in Matthew, Mark, and John. But when you get to verse 23, it's going back into what? The genealogy of Yahweh, right? And then it's going to name nothing but men. See? Nothing but men. And then it traces the lineage all the way back. All the way back. Look at that. None but men. How come it ain't naming women? Then when you get to verse 38, which was the son of Enos, which was the son of Seth, which was the son of Adam, which was the son of God. All right? Now we know when the scriptures say son of God, it be referring to Yahweh mainly. All right? It's naming nothing but men because it's tracing the seed line back. All right? Not bloodline, seed line. So now, let's even read this. This is Numbers chapter 18 and verse 1. Under the old system, right? Before Yahweh was sacrificed and the veil in the temple rent. Duties of Levites. Numbers 18 and 1. And Yahweh said unto Aaron, thou and thy sons and thy father's house with thee shall bear the iniquity of the sanctuary, and thou and thy sons with thee shall bear the iniquity of your priesthood. And thy brethren also of the tribe of Levi, the tribe of thy father, bring thou with thee, that thou may be joint unto thee. Because that's what Levi mean, right? Joint unto me, joint unto the Lord. They did the duty of the Lord, the service of the Lord back then. It says, and minister unto thee, and thou and thy sons with thee shall minister before the tabernacle of witness. And they shall keep thy charge and the charge of all the tabernacle. Only they shall not come nigh the vessels of the sanctuary and the altar, that neither they nor ye also die. It says, and they shall be joint unto thee, and keep the charge of the tabernacle of the congregation for all the service of the tabernacle. And the stranger shall not come nigh unto you. So, I mean, that's the point. So you couldn't even be a priest if you didn't come out of this seed line and tribe. All right? But that was back then. Even to be a prophet, when you read Deuteronomy 18, let me see if I can get it. I didn't even have it in this lesson. So it'd be hard to type in Deuteronomy 18, man. Let me see. Okay, there we go. Deuteronomy 18. There we go. So now check this out. Deuteronomy 18 in verse 15. It says, Yahweh thy God will raise up unto thee a prophet. A prophet is a man that comes from the seed line of Israel, from the midst of thee, of thy brethren, meaning the rest of the 11 tribes of Israel, right? It says, like unto me, unto him ye shall hearken. He didn't say hearken unto an Arab so-called prophet like Muhammad. He's not a prophet. And I'm not going to go too much into Muhammad, but he was a sodomite though. All right? But the point is, he's a heathen. A heathen is not a prophet, period. The Lord said, I'm going to raise up a prophet from among thy brethren, meaning from what? From the seed line of Jacob, from one of the 12 tribes of Israel. Not all the prophets was Judah. You have prophets that come from different tribes. Napthali, right? All types. It says, so that's it with that. Let me read in the NLT, see if it says something even better. This is Deuteronomy 18 and 15. It says, Moses continued, Yahweh your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from among your fellow Israelites, meaning from that seed. You must listen to him. All right? So there you go. Seed line is important. Now, concerning this Mamzer doctrine, because you got particular Israelite groups and just doctrine that come from Edomites, they say that if you have a heathen mother, even if your father's an Israelite, making you an Israelite technically, they call you a Mamzer, right? Because they think that the Israelite man having sex with a heathen woman and he put his seed in her and she conceived, that child is a Mamzer, because the Most High, he forbidded us having sexual relations with the heathen woman. That's not in the Bible though. All right? So now check this out. Mamzer, right, is a child born from specific forbidden incestuous or adulterous relationships. It says it does not simply mean a child born out of wedlock. Let's go down here. Oh, here we go. In Orthodox Judaism, a Mamzer is restricted from marrying others within the traditional Jewish community, and this status is typically passed down to their descendants. So even if under Judaism, remember, Judaism is a man-made religion. It's not even in the Bible. But when they say Judaism, they be referring to like the Torah, all right? So if you have an Israelite man and he gets a heathen woman pregnant and she gives birth to his child, they will call that child a Mamzer, because they think the Most High forbid us having sex with heathen women. Even though you read scriptures like Deuteronomy 21, verses like 10 through 14, you had different kings and men of Israel that got heathen women pregnant, and them children still sat on the throne. I'm going to show you. This is 1 Kings 14 and 31. It says, and Rehoboam slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And his mother's name was Namiah and Ammonitis. And Abijam, his son, reigned in his stead. So how if he's a Mamzer and the Most High forbid us having sex with the heathen woman, how did Abijam, his son, reign in his stead if the mother was an Ammonitess? Because it goes according to the man's seed. It's that simple. Now let's read a little bit about this confusion, all right? Because it's not really a big deal. It's Moses' wife and she's a woman. But the point is, for edification's sake, right? Let's bring this out. Exodus 2 and 21. And Moses was content to dwell with the man. Let's read it in the NLT. Let's read it in the NLT. This is Exodus chapter 2 and verse 21. It says, Moses accepted the invitation and he settled there with him. In time, Reuel gave Moses his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. Later she gave birth to a son, and Moses named him Gershom, for he explained, I have been a foreigner in a foreign land. So Gershom name mean foreigner, right? It says, so that's it with that. So let me actually go back where it says that came from Midian, right? I mean, you could go through the chapter. It's going to say that, you know, the father was a Midianite. So you'll think like, wait a minute. If it's saying Midian and Numbers 12 is saying Cush, which one is it? But I'm going to get to that. So check this out. I typed in, was Moses' son Gershom, I spelled it wrong, an Israelite? Yes, Moses' son Gershom was an Israelite because Moses was a Levite. Gershom and his descendants, that seed, belonged to the tribe of Levi. It says Gershom was born in Midian to Moses and his Midianite wife Zipporah. You see what I'm saying? So they call her a Midianite, but then in Numbers they call her a Cushite. It says biblical sources generally consider him part of the Israelite community. Yeah, because his father that carried the seed, that's where he come from, is a Levite, an Israelite. And he is listed as the progenitor of a major Levitic clan in the book of Chronicles, right? So there you go. Check this out. So this is what I typed in, Gershom, Moses' son. It says Gershom is the firstborn son of Moses and his wife Zipporah. He had one younger brother named Eleazar, right? The name Gershom originates from the Hebrew word gar, right? Which means a stranger there. As Moses declared when the boy was born, I have been a stranger in a strange land. Exodus 2:22, that's what I read, right? Key passages mentioning Gershom's lineage include Exodus 2:22, records his birth and the meaning of his name. Exodus 18:3 mentions him alongside his brother Eleazar when Jethro brought Moses' family to the wilderness. 1 Chronicles 23 and 15 confirms his position as the first son of Moses. All right? So he's an Israelite. His mother was a heathen, but he's still an Israelite because of his father's seed. Now check this out, right? So I typed in Zipporah was a Cushite, or I meant to type Midianite, right? Clerical error. Because I like to do research. I want to see, was it a clerical error, or why is one scripture saying one thing and then the other scripture saying another thing? So I had to do some research, right? So it says Zipporah was a Midianite by birth, Exodus the 2nd chapter, but she is called a Cushite in Numbers 12 and 1, rather than a clerical error. Most scholars and theologians agree she was considered both. So now check this out. The Midianites and Cushites frequently intermarried. And even when you look at a lot of these Cushites, they do got like a Arabian type of look to them, because we know the Midianites, they pretty much Arabs. All right? So you be having some Cushites, they be having features like that too. So I'm going to read it again. It says, she was considered both. The Midianites and Cushites frequently intermarried, and Cushite was also occasionally used to describe individuals of dark complexion or exceptional beauty. All right, so that's good for Moses. It says the intermarriage / geographical theory. Cush primarily referred to Nubia / Ethiopia, but ancient Egyptian records also associate a nomadic tribe of Kushu with the Sinai and Midianite regions. Intermarriage between Midianites and African Cushites was historically common, meaning Zipporah's heritage could include both. This is the consensus view among many theologians. All right? So there you go. There you go. All right? So it ain't really important like that, because she's a woman. She don't carry seed. But the point is, in that region, you had Cush and Midianites. They would be getting together and reproducing. All right? So she could have been either or, but the scriptures say her father was a Midianite. So that's what we would have to roll with. All right? Even though you had Cushites in that land. So it says, yep, Numbers 12 and 1. And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ethiopian woman. See, so like I said, she could have been a Cushite, but the scriptures say her father was a Midianite. It's not really important because she don't carry the seed. This is just for edification. It says whom he had married, for he had married an Ethiopian woman. All right? So that's it with that. So, you know, that's pretty much it. Lord willing, you was edified by the lesson. Shalom.